The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Hey guys, I'm usually Dave with the digitalSoup podcast, here with another first take response on a movie I saw recently. That movie this week is The Dark Tower by Stephen King. Now, this movie's pretty divisive. I went and saw it recently. We're going to dive into my thoughts on this flick in just a moment. All right, so The Dark Tower. I've got to say, this is a movie that a lot of people are very split about. It seems like some people enjoyed it. Some people really detested the movie. And other people just kind of on the fence. I'm not finding too many that absolutely loved it. That being said, I think the important thing is you've got a couple camps of people here with the Dark Tower series that's going to follow Roland, starring Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black. And this story, the important thing, if you're a fan of the books to remember, is that it is not a faithful retelling of The Gunslinger, the first book in that series. This is actually a sequel of sorts to the entire Dark Tower series, which, with that in mind, helps shape a little bit of how you need to view this movie when you come into it. Now, even with that, that was the first item that had people very upset, is because they felt like this did not do the movie justice. The movie did not do the books justice, and it wasn't true to the characters and all of this kind of stuff. Now, I get that. If you were expecting a remake of The Gunslinger, you're not going to get it in this movie. This is just simply not that story. But I thought what they did was very cool. It was a great way to introduce us to the world of the Dark Tower, to the world of the Gunslinger. And let's face it, with a massive series like that, 7 books long, I think, and just such a huge story that spanned decades of writing for Stephen King, it's impossible to squeeze even one of those books into a feature-length film, especially one that comes in at that 90-minute mark, 95-minute mark. It's not a real long movie. Now, a lot of people are also upset about this movie just because it actually, when they viewed it as a standalone, they said, well, there was no character substance. There was no interesting plot developments, anything else. I kind of disagree with that, and I'm not saying I'm right or anyone else is wrong, but I think as a standalone movie, this was a lot of fun. Now, the way I personally viewed this, I enjoyed this movie. Bottom line, I had a lot of fun with it. Do I think it was a great Dark Tower movie? A great Stephen King movie? I go back and forth. I'm up in the air on that because some points I really liked, other points I felt like I wish I could have seen that actual Dark Tower story. That being said, I think what's going to happen if the studio doesn't take too big of a hit on this movie is that we're going to see this movie be used as just a launching point to set off something more along the lines of a TV series where they can really go in deep and retell a lot of that Dark Tower story. Now, they're not going to necessarily tell the story from the books. This may be a brand new story that we've never seen. I don't know what they're going to do there if they do anything, but I think a TV series is what they're going to have to do with this movie in order to make it deep enough and character driven enough, because Stephen King, as we know, is very lengthy and wordy in his descriptions of the different scenarios, of the different places you're seeing the backdrops for his stories, a lot of dialogue, and that doesn't always translate well into a Hollywood blockbuster movie. This movie here, though, aside from what may or may not happen in the future regarding possible TV series or extra movies or whatever else, I thought it was great. You jump right into the action. They had a neat twist on how they handle the moving between the worlds, which I know a lot of people were upset about because it involved a little too much magic or a little too much technology with these portals and stuff. But really, that world of the Dark Tower, it's such an interesting blend of the magic in the books and the science and the feeling like so many of these other worlds are just our world here on Earth Prime, if you want to call it that, Keystone Earth as they call it in the movies, that have just been twisted a little bit, or where there's some different advances while they're still, maybe they've got some kind of crazy science that they can use for portals, but they're still living like they're in the primitive Stone Age. I don't know. It's one of those things where this movie, for me, I had a lot of fun with it. Was it the best movie I've seen this summer? Not at all. Was it enjoyable? Absolutely. And I do recommend you go watch it. But just remember, when you get into this movie, do not think of it as a straight retelling of that Dark Tower series, of the Gunslinger. Think of it more in terms of, we're going to take some of the favorite elements from the Dark Tower book series, kind of bring those in a very loose way, and introduce people to the world of the Gunslinger, to the world of the Man in Black, to the world of the Dark Tower. And I think now, with the way this movie ended, which I'm not going to spoil here for you guys, what we're going to see is the Gunslinger go off and now start his real adventure in reaching that Dark Tower and going off, and we're going to see a lot more of those other things brought in if the movie did well enough to allow a studio or multiple studios to pick this up in terms of like TV or something like that. So the Dark Tower, I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. I personally enjoyed it. I know it's a very divisive movie. I've talked to a few friends of mine, some that absolutely hated it, some that actually loved it a lot, thought it was a fantastic reimagining of this story, and most importantly, a great introduction to the world of the Dark Tower if you're not familiar with the books. If you're a diehard Dark Tower book fan, this movie will disappoint you if you think it's going to faithfully recreate the books. But just keep in mind, like I said, go into it with an open mind and know that it is not going to retell that story. Anyways, guys, I'm usually Dave with the Digital Soup podcast. I'm going to get out of here because there's more movies to watch and we record tonight. So take care, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.